Greetings and blessed day to you once again, people of God. It's the Revelator once more, and hoping once again that you had a splendid week in the presence of Jesus Christ. And once again, we enter into another usual, informative gospel where I share with you another unusual creative dimension in the word of revelation. And before we get into scriptures, I just want to brief you of what we covered earlier. And we covered earlier on the demon of weapons and ammunitions. And we talked about the nuclear weapons inventions and how Lucifer is preparing for the last destruction. And we went on further and talked about the mystery of the God of fire, the God of water, and the God of the earth. We talked about the dimensions of floods, earthquakes, and the dimensions of volcanic eruptions. We all manifested the dimensions of revelations in those multiple diversities of explanations in the spirit. And today we want to focus on yet another exploring presentation, an unusual sermon indeed, which is on the alien invasion. The alien invasion. I know so many times there has been a lot of rumors, a lot of things that have been read on internet by the unlearned minds, things that have been spoken out of assumption, things that have been seen on video footages. But I need to give you a revelation that concerns the alien invasion, which I have believed and have revealed in the spirit, and which God has inspired me that there will be another race of God that shall descend upon this earth, which is the alien invasion. And some of these are the signs of the last hours that we await for. And the signs have already begun in the spirit. But there will be another race of God that shall descend upon this earth. And inside the alien invasion, we are revealing, or I am revealing, the four beasts, which are the four creations of God, which define the four creatures of God, both in the spirit and in the physical. So for us to understand more on this presentation, let's get into scriptures. But before we get into scriptures, I just want to brief you so that you understand that God has created diversities and dimensions of creations when it comes to creatures. And the first category of creation, which is the first category of creatures that God created, are the angelic beings in heaven, which is the category number one of beasts. Those are beasts. Anything that is resembled as a beast in the Holy Bible, it's a creature. Not, of course, including the mention of the beast which is resembled in Revelations 13. That one is not a creature but a system of men, which comprises of even the technological systems and the structures or the systems that have been built and manufactured by men. But the beasts that I'm talking about here, they are beasts that have been comprised as creations of God, like the angelic beings in heaven. Not only the angelic beings in heaven, but all other creatures that are created in heaven. And there is another creation of God which was created by God, but it downplayed, it had an intent to downplay God, and it was casted out of heaven. That is the demonic creation. Demons are not created by the Lord, but I'm just giving you a significance so that you understand that demonic spirits are also a creature or a creation of God in the spirit. But in the realm where demons reside in the firmament, there are also other creatures And there are also other planets, just like we have this earth. And upon the falling of evil demonic spirits from heaven, there are many realms which demons descended upon. Before we even talk about the firmament in the sky that you can see, which is invisible, before we even talk about the dry ground here on the earth, before we talk about every demonic spirit descended that descended on this realm, which is the practical ground, there are so many planets in the spirit, both planets that can be visited physically and those that you cannot see in the spirit, and they represent kingdoms. And inside those kingdoms, you can actually go there and visit those planets, and there are other creatures of God that have never been seen on this practical realm. When you hear those scientists talking about 9 planets, they are talking about the planets that which they have visited, which are physical. I'm talking about the planets or the kingdoms in the spirit that you have never seen. So, people of God, before we even talk about the creation of Adam, there were already other creatures that were created, which include the angels in heaven, which is the first batch and category of creation, which represents the first category of beast creatures. Before we talk about the fourth category of beast creatures, which are the animals, which were given to Adam, and Adam being the third category of the creature, which is a human being. And the second category is the one that I want to reveal. This is where invisible and physical beings of creatures that you don't understand will reside here on earth. Some of them have already fallen, some of them have already been seen in the sky, and some of them are aliens. Aliens, just like there is a term humans, aliens are also a creature or creation of God, but some of them, they are not aliens, some of them, they are fallen spirits. So there should be a revelation that is able to give a distinction between aliens and demons. Demons are spiritual beings, and aliens are physical beings that dwell in another planet, in another kingdom in the spirit. And inside that kingdom of aliens, there are also spiritual beings which have been created by God. So for us to understand more on this issue of the alien invasion using scripture reference, let's get into scriptures. In the book of Acts chapter 10 verse 12, it reads, wherein we all manner of 4-footed beasts of the earth. It talks about the 4-footed beasts of the earth. And when you hear about the 4-footed beasts of the earth, it's not only talking about animals, it's also talking about men. This is why even in the evolution of men, which is not the description of the creation of men, but according to science, you see those chimpanzees or the gorillas which walk 4-footed down on the ground. So the significance of anything that is 4-footed or 4-footed is it comprises of even human beings which have got legs, 2 legs and 2 hands. And that description all falls under category number 3 and 4, which is of animals and human beings created by God. So I want to take you to the realm earlier or later on, where I'll be revealing about these aliens. And it talks about the 4-footed beasts of the earth and the wild beasts and the creeping things and the fowls of the air. And in Acts chapter 11 verse 6, upon which when I fastened my eyes, I considered and saw 4-footed beasts of the earth and wild beasts and creeping things. When we're talking about creeping things, we're talking about insects, spiders, anything that is created by God, which includes the birds that creeps here on earth and the fowls of the air, which are the birds. In Romans chapter 1 verse 23, it reads, who changed the lie who changed the truth of God into a lie, and change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible men, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. If after the manner of men I fought with beasts at Ephesus, this was Apostle Paul that is giving a description of beasts that he wrestled with at Ephesus. And whichever beast he was talking about, he was not talking about fighting with the beast that you can see. He was talking about fallen angels. When he's talking about the beast, I have already told you that the beast, everything that is a beast is considered a creature, including the fallen beings, which is the second category of demonic spirits. The second category on the list of the four beasts, which are the four creatures of God in the spirit. And these are the creatures that Apostle Paul wrestled with at Ephesus. If after the men of men I fought with the beast at Ephesus, what advantage it me in the spirit? What does it give me advantage in the spirit if the dead rise not? Let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we might die. Or tomorrow, he says, we die. He's talking about the nature of the creation of man in the flesh, which eventually dies, not the spirit man, which was breathed into the nostrils of the natural man, who is the fourth category of the beast, which I mentioned is the human race. So he's not talking about the other category of beasts, which are the animals, the four-footed, which I explained, both those that creep here on earth and the birds that which fly in the air. So when he talks about the beast which he wrestled with at Ephesus, he's obviously referring to the beast in the spirit which fell from heaven, which are invisible beings. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 39, it reads, all flesh in the physical are the same, but all flesh are not the same. I'll read that one again. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, and another flesh of beasts, and another flesh of fishes, and another of birds. These are all categories of flesh which are possessed by creatures that dwell here on earth, that have been created by God. Meaning that there are also other creatures that have their own form of flesh, which have also been created by God, even though they don't dwell here on earth. They are here on earth, but they cannot be seen physically, and they do have a flesh, which is another formation of flesh, which is not the type of flesh that a human being has, or which is not the type of flesh that these animals have. One of themselves being the flesh of a human being, which a human being will eventually leave this flesh. After leaving this flesh, his spirit will leave the body. It is a natural flesh. So the flesh that I want to talk about here is the flesh that cannot be seen in the physical, but the flesh that is in the spirit. If you believe that everything that is in the spirit is only spiritual, then I'm giving you a revelation that there are physical formations of things that have been created by God in the spirit, which have got the flesh of not a human in the natural, but the flesh in the spiritual sense, in the spiritual invisibility. In the book of James chapter 3 verse 7, for every kind of beast and of birds and of serpents and of things in the sea is tamed, hath been tamed of mankind. But these as natural brute beasts made to mistaken and destroy, to speak evil of the things they do not understand, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. In the book of Jude chapter 1 verse 10. But these speak evil of things which they know not, but what they know naturally. Things they know not, but what they know naturally. The things that we know naturally are the things that we see physically, which comprise of the human flesh, which comprise of things that are physical. As brute beasts, in those things they corrupt themselves. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. This is now the book of Revelation chapter 4 verse 6. I'm now taking you to the realm of the two other creatures, which are not just creatures in the physical, but creatures in the spirit. Every creature that fell from heaven is a spiritual creature. Then there be creatures that reside in heaven, which are spiritual creatures, and these are beasts which are separate from angels. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. The book of Revelation there is talking about beasts in heaven. These are not angels. These are creatures created by God, which are in heaven, which have been identified and signified with the eyes in the forefront and behind. And the four beasts had each of them 6 wings about him. 6 wings representing the wings of the angels. The description of the beasts are resembling the 4 creatures and the 4 beasts that I'm explaining, and they were full of eyes within. The creature that has got eyes within is a spiritual being, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, holy Lord Almighty, which was and is going to come. In the book of Revelations chapter 4 verse 9, and when those beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him that sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, who is Jesus. And I beheld, lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent forth into all earth. The 7 spirits of God, they do not cater only for those that are on earth, they cater for even the beings that are in another realm, in another planet, which is not here on earth. We've got aliens that are in the realm that is unspoken in the spirit, physical beings with spirituality. The spirituality is that these beings, they live in a realm that is not practical, but they can dwell in a physical place. These are the aliens that shall descend. But before they descend, many signs shall be seen in the sky before they dwell and they are seen in the physical. I hope someone is understanding what I'm saying. These can be identified as spiritual beings, and these can be identified at the same time as physical beings, for they transform as they manifest in the physical as physical beings, but they dwell in a spiritual kingdom which is not on this earthly realm. And when those beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him that sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, I beheld, lo, and in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts and the midst of the elders stood a lamb, and it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and the 24 elders fell down before the lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vessels full of odors, and which are the prayers of the saints. So I need you to understand that the beasts that are being talked about here, they are not just angelic beings. They are other creatures that God created in heaven. And the same creatures that God created in heaven, there are other beings which are not humans that reside in another realm, in another kingdom, in another planet. They appear spiritual to those that have spiritual eyes, and they also dwell in physical dimensions, but being spiritual beings. And I saw the Lamb of God in the spirit, which resembles Jesus Christ, but is being identified as a lamb. A lamb is a creature, but the creature is being identified as Christ, because every manifestation of the beast, of the four beasts, is a resemblance of Christ. And man was created in the image of God. And likewise, even the four creatures, which are the four beasts that I'm relating to, they were also created by God. So, people of God, there will come a time where we are going to experience an alien invasion. I've already explained to you, these are creatures that reign in another planet. There is not only one planet, which is the earth. There are many planets. The planets which they believe they've gone there through their space aircraft inventions, through their rockets. And when they go there, whatever they see is what they can see physically with their eyes. But there are other planets that cannot be seen physically. They can only be identified spiritually. And there shall come a time from those planets where we shall experience creatures that shall dwell here on earth. They are not only aliens, but I have identified these as aliens because these are the common ones according to description of identification and naming. And they shall come here on earth and they shall walk on this dry land. But these being creatures coming from a spiritual realm, from a planet which is spiritual, coming from a kingdom which is spiritual, in the heavenly places. So I hope someone has understood the alien invasion, the four beasts. I've already explained to you, the last category being the animals, and the third category being the category of the human creation, and the second and the first category being the angels and the realm of the creatures that reside in other planets, which are not only this earth that has been created by God. Until next time, have a great blessed day.